So this poem is about being perceived as a child and also in many ways being one. Okay. One of the existential questions that everyone grapples with is, what does being an adult mean? Responsibility, independence, legal drinking age, spiritual transcendence. But in the blur of answering these questions with my actions, a question more poignant stands out as starkly as ever. What does being a child mean? I sometimes look myself in a mirror and ask myself, am I still a child? Most of the world still believes that I am, because most of the world is made up of random strangers who choose to judge me by my face. Because if wrinkles make your face age, then these layers of fat on my cheeks make me age backwards. My existence is competition to Benjamin Button and Pond's Age Miracle. And as human logic goes, midgets like me can't really be adults and owe you a laughing smile and no annoyance and a full 5-minute explanation on how they really are not underage before you can bother to believe them and continue to infantilize them anyway. I sometimes look myself in a mirror and ask myself, am I still a child, as though there was some invisible line that I necessarily had to cross to leave my sense of wonder behind. But like we say in Srishti in truly hipster terminology, I don't believe in linear narratives. I don't think that I have ever so easily transposed from child to adolescent to adult. To accept this as the only story for me is far too difficult when I realize what I could be leaving behind. I exist like a pack of cards. My kings and queens belong to different ages, and I may not always know what I'm going to get from the deck, but I always know which cards to play from what I get. A confused child's face always attracts a stranger's smile and help. And with an apparently innocent face, my dead baby jokes and sexual innuendos gain an extra edge. I can dance as awkwardly as I feel I can dance like no one is ever seeing. Someone once said that the difference between being childish and childlike is that in childlike, you retain a sense of wonder about the world, and I wonder, since when did we start depriving adults of that? I sometimes look myself in a mirror and ask myself, am I still a child? But maybe rather than question myself, I should question the meaning of that word itself. Does it mean simplicity? The way we think that dogs are lovely, simple creatures when we don't even speak a language common enough to ever truly understand their world. I believe we only label people as simple when we are too afraid to truly gauge their complexity. Still waters run deep, and you are no diver. You choose to see my hesitance as cute, my silence as niceties, and put the label of child on my desire to live authentically. I would say that you should not judge a book by its cover, but since when were books ever meant to be judged? They were only meant to be read and understood as such. What does it mean when you say, oh, you're just a child, aren't you? Or when you tell someone to grow up, or when you laud someone for their maturity, how much of it do you truly believe makes someone an adult, rather than just an ideal of acceptable behavior and conformity? I sometimes look myself in the mirror and ask myself, am I still a child, or are these judgments that I perceive just make-believe? But maybe this boundary between child and adult doesn't just separate two different realities, but rather just limits us from living diversely. These are just invisible hierarchies that are more illusionary than real. And we humans crave superiority, so we assume that anyone with a different growth chart is victim to disability. Like navigating the world differently from you makes me a worse sailor than you, but I always liked crazy Captain Jack Sparrow, don't you? My mom once pointed to a plant and said, if you tell it to grow up, will it grow any faster? But I asked, does that make it any lesser? Children were never simple. They saw a blank wall as a canvas to paint their fantasies on, and guess what we do in art school now? We were children once too, ones that withstood bullies and embodiments of the world's prejudices and follies. We crawled our way out of rigid educational systems, threw ourselves into the traffic of the incoming future, and dared to dance through it anyway. So why do we feel shameful to even identify as childlike today? I thought that being seen as a child would end up being a fetter that I would clamp onto my own leg, not trusting my ability to be myself. But look now, I'm melting the metal to create a suit so that I can be my own knight in shining armor, reflecting my light, both new and old, protected from being jaded by the expectations of the world. I don't care anymore if I'm seen to be childlike. This subversion is of a different kind, one that makes me learn, one that you may not necessarily like, but is still mine.